I want to do a quick component review on the Transition Sentinel demo bike that's currently in my garage, the version 3, and that is the SRAM Maven Brakes. Now this is the only model that comes with these brakes, but I want to talk about the brakes themselves in case you've ever considered these, and I'll just talk about my experience with them. And I'll say, these are hands down the most powerful brakes I have ever used on a bicycle. SRAM says they are 50% more powerful than the code brakes. I had the codes on another Transition Sentinel that I owned, and I thought those were the most powerful brakes that I have used. These are the Maven Silver. The Silver retail for $265 per set, like per, one caliper, one lever. I don't think they even come with rotors. And then the Ultimates are $300 and the Bronze is like $185. I'm not really going to go into the differences between those because I really haven't studied that, and I have not used the other ones, but I want to talk about the Silvers that are on this bike, and I'm going to show them up close, just talk about the features of these brakes, and then talk about my experience riding the bike with the brakes. Let's start up at the lever. Like a lot of brakes today, you've got an adjustment for pad contact. So this dial here, the more you turn this way to the IN, it will allow the lever to go closer to the bar before you actually make contact. I personally like the dial all the way out. I like my brakes to start making contact as soon as I start to squeeze the lever, as soon as possible. And then also you've got the reach lever, so I can adjust how far the lever actually sits from the bar. Both of those are features that I always try to have on a brake, especially the reach lever. I don't, my hands are not that big, so I don't like having to reach way out. I like being able to really just put my finger out and grab the brakes without extending it too far. And I like that also because I ride with my fingers on the brakes a lot, and I don't want my hands to be really stretched out. So those are the two features you have as far as adjustment. One thing I really like about these brakes is how quickly they start to make contact. I've had some brakes, so I don't want to really name names here, but some that, for example, that are on my e-bike, and they just feel a little mushy, and they really go pretty far into the actual grip, the bar, before they start to make contact, and I just don't like that feel. These have what SRAM calls a swing link, and what that does is as you pull the lever in closer to the bar, you're going to get more and more power, and that helps with modulation. I will say, let's go ahead and talk about how these perform, and I will say these have a pretty instant grab, which I personally love. That's why I've always stuck with Shimano brakes. I love Shimano XT brakes because you just get a pretty quick grab, and these grab quicker than any SRAM brake that I've ever used. Now, I will also go ahead and say that these are mineral oil. This is the first SRAM brake that I know of that uses mineral oil. I hate working with dot fluid. It's just corrosive. You got to be really careful with it. Mineral oil is not like that. They still have good modulation. They have a quick bite, but you still get pretty good modulation, and that's because of the swing link. So that's the performance. Now let's actually look down at the caliper, because I want to talk about the way they've designed the caliper. This is a massive caliper. And what that does is it really helps with the stiffness. And you've got these 4 bolts. And by the way, this is a 4-piston brake, if you haven't figured that out, as opposed to a 2-piston. The more pistons, obviously, the more power. And this brake is designed for downhill, enduro, and long travel trail, and also e-bikes, right? Because you've got so much mass on an e-bike, you need a lot of power in a brake. And this is not a cross-country brake. Like, it's just too heavy, it's too powerful. Man, if you put this brake on like skinny tires, you would just lock up the wheel, and you would lose traction in the corners when you're trying to brake. These tires are pretty beefy, the 2.4 in the back, a 2.5 in the front. So again, this is a brake that's designed for downhill, enduro, long travel trail, and e-bikes. And they've really increased the stiffness of this caliper, just the size of it. And then these 4, I think they said they're titanium bolts that go through, and that also allows for braking performance, because if you have a brake caliper that flexes, it's just not going to be a good feel. You're not going to get quite the power of a stiffer brake caliper. That is my quick review of the SRAM Maven Silver brakes. Like I mentioned earlier, not for cross country, but for downhill, enduro, long travel, and e-bikes. these are a really good option that I think you're going to be seeing a lot of these on the race circuit, because this is a high quality, high power, high performing brake. Not cheap, but you get what you pay for. And I'm really stoked Transition included these on this top end Sentinel, because even though this is a demo bike, I think you're going to be seeing one of these in my personal fleet sometime in the near future. Any questions or comments, drop those below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do so. And if you've used these brakes, let us know your thoughts. Do you agree with me, disagree? I'd love to hear it. Catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.